Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bhutam dhammam sangham namasami. So I always say that I try to do my best to represent the teachings of the Buddha, and I'm drawing my teaching from largely from the middle length discourses. Today, I have a copy. Also, I have a Bhante Sujato's translation from Sutta Central. So I'm going to be discussing the Noble Eightfold Path and looking at the path as a gradual path. It's one of the gradual trainings. It's often not presented in that way, but there is certainly that aspect to it. And so I'm going to try to talk about that as best as I can. Usually the Noble Eightfold Path is divided into three aspects, which is Sila, Samadhi, Panya, which Sila is a ethical conduct. Samadhi is quietude, the stillness, the collectedness of mind. Is not really one good word to define Samadhi. And Panya is wisdom. And so this is one way to divide it up. And usually the Sila part is the starting with right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And the Samadhi is right effort, right mindfulness, and then right Samadhi. I don't want to translate Samadhi as one word. And then the Panya aspect is the right view or right understanding and right intention. So these two actually are the first two elements of the path. So it's kind of interesting that's usually phrased as Sila, Samadhi, Panya. And I'm going to talk about the Great 40 a little bit. The Great 40, the Buddha is addressing his disciples, and he's talking about the requisites for right samadhi, noble right samadhi. And he says it's the other 7 factors of the path. And he says that right view comes first. This is what he says. And how does right view come first? You have to discern or understand what is wrong view and what is right view. So that's our challenge, is that to understand this for ourselves, really. He does lay out in the sutta itself. I can read. I like actually Bhante Sujato's translation. Have it here, and to understand what is right view and what is wrong. First, you have to understand what is wrong view, and it's there is no meaning in giving, sacrifice, offering. There is no fruit or result of good and bad deeds. There's no afterlife. There is no duties to mother and father. No beings are reborn spontaneously, and there's no ascetics or Brahmins who is well attained to practiced and who describes the afterlife after realizing it with their own insight. So this is a wrong view. And of course, the right view is the opposite of that. So, and then it talks about right view that comes to fruition and merit. And then there's transcendental right view that is a factor of the path that's onward leading to awakening. But what I like to say about this is that there's, it's sometimes translated as mundane right view and then super mundane right view, but what it is foundational right view. I see it as that. You don't want to say that just these aspects where you're just that you're putting down the idea of making merit or happiness in this lifetime, and then we just want to leap to the super mundane. So you need this foundation. You need the understanding of what is right view to start with. One aspect also in the Majjhima Nikaya, there's another sutta called Right View, and it's a teaching by Sariputta, and he starts out talking about kusala, akusala. He talks about what's wholesome and what's unwholesome. To have that understanding, this is the foundation that we need to start with right view. And it actually touches on the factors of the path. What is wholesome is right speech, right action, right livelihood. These, and what are the roots of these things is the roots of right speech, right action, and right livelihood are non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. So it's the opposite of the unwholesome roots. So these are, this is a foundational beginning of our path, right view coming first, understanding the wholesome. Says my internet connection's unstable. Can you still hear me? It's okay? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, so when we understand for ourselves what is wholesome and what is unwholesome. And if we start out with seeing what's harmful or unskillful and what's skillful, we can know these things for ourselves. So this is our basic foundation to deepen our understanding by looking at these what arises in our daily life, what arises in our mind, how we're acting in the world, and seeing cause and effect, understanding this deeply. So this is part of the beginning of the development of the path, is to see for ourselves, understand for ourselves the wholesome and the unwholesome. And these things that are listed in the sutta here, some we can see for ourselves clearly. It says there is meaning in giving, sacrificing, and offering. So we can see for ourselves that if I act generously, if I'm giving, giving of myself, like sacrificing a little bit, actually we're bringing happiness and benefit to the world. We can see that clearly to ourselves. And maybe it's helpful in making merit, and may result in a good future birth, but we can't know that. But we can know the happiness that comes from giving, from generosity. And then there is there are fruits and results of good and bad deeds. So if we act in a way, we break our basic precepts, we can see the harm it causes for ourselves and others. These are factors of the path too. The right speech is to avoid false speech, malicious speech, harmful speech, useless speech. And then the right action is avoiding killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. And then right livelihood is to avoid harmful types of earning money, anything that exploits human beings or animals. So we can see for ourselves the benefit of keeping these precepts. We can see for ourselves the benefit of avoiding the harmful. So this is how we develop our understanding, and seeing for ourselves the harm the unwholesome delivers to us and others, and seeing for ourselves the benefit. So right view comes first, it says in the sutta. And it's also, that's kind of a refrain for each of the path factors. The next right intention is understanding what's right intention and what's wrong intention. So actually in one of the suttas, the Buddha, before his awakening in the two kinds of thought, that's another sutta, it's number 19, he divides his thinking into two types. And he starts to see when, if there's thoughts of ill will or sensual desire or cruelty, he can see the harm in that. He can see if it's harmful for himself or for others or for both, he's abandoning these kinds of thoughts. So he sees in ill will, cruelty, and sensual desire the harm it causes. So he says when he saw the harm, those thoughts subsided. And then when he looked at non-ill will, which would be metta, loving kindness, non-cruelty, which is karuna, or compassion, and the opposite of sensual desire is renunciation, or nekama. And he saw no harm in those. He saw the beauty in those. He saw the aspect of cleansing, of purification. So this is developing the understanding of right intention. And it's interesting that it says in this sutta, in the Great 40, it says that we make an effort. You make an effort to abandon wrong intention. You make an effort to enter right intention. So this is what the Buddha was actually doing. He was by examining, by seeing for himself, and the unwholesome subsided. When he saw for himself the harm, the unwholesome subsided. So this is the abandoning. And then entering into the right intention by seeing the benefit of it. So this is a developing mindfulness actually too. It's not only right effort, but we're developing the power of observation. We're observing what's going on in our minds. We're observing if it's helpful or harmful. So these three all, it says in the sutta that these three all revolve around each of these path factors: right view, right effort, and right mindfulness. They're all mutually supportive. So this is like the evolving of our path, is by putting, kind of using these as building blocks. I like to think of if we're have a really solid foundation of right view, and then you maybe have the mindfulness and the right effort. These are like other components that are helping with the foundation. Uh, so so we're building gradually our understanding. We're strengthening our mindfulness. We're developing our right effort in conjunction with the other path factors. So these three circle and kind of move forward. There's with all the path factors, and they're developing over time. So we can develop the mindfulness by awareness in all our activities, awareness of our state of mind, awareness of also the feelings that come up when we're engaging in what's helpful and what's harmful. And then this will naturally help us abandon the unwholesome and develop the wholesome mental states as well as actions. So these are all, it says in the sutta, these are all supports for samadhi. So when the mind has abandoned, when we've abandoned unwholesome activities of mental activities, speech and physical activities, when we've abandoned the unwholesome, then the mind naturally comes to stillness. The mind naturally, the joy comes up naturally. So then this is very supportive to our, when we're sitting in meditation, or just to have a calm state of mind throughout the day. This is the development of samadhi. The stillness of mind, the quietude of mind naturally arises when we've abandoned unwholesome activities of body, speech, and mind. And then the mental development, the understanding of the Four Noble Truths is easier to access when we have a still, quiet mind. This is how this sutta continues. So right thought starts to becoming more transcendent, and then we have other factors during our meditation. It's the thinking, the placing of the mind, thought, applying, application, implanting the mind, verbal processes of one of noble mind, of undefiled mind, who possesses the noble path and develops the noble path. So as we develop the purity of the mind, we're able to see these teachings really clearly. And also during our meditation, there's a applied thought and sustained thought. This is also an aspect of right thought or right intention. So these factors are developing naturally as we purify our minds. And this aids in the arising of true knowledge and true insight and complete liberation of mind. So we can just observe these things in ourselves, and the path will develop on its own if we do. We apply ourselves, as we're saying, allowing the right intention, the right view, the right mindfulness, and the right effort working together. And then the understanding the so-called super mundane right path will arise. So the path is to be developed, and if we just are patient and stay with it over time, and just continue to develop our powers of observation and kindness to ourselves, then we can have fruition of the path. So I think I'll open this to conversation or questions. Sangamita, were you saying something?
Oh, I just asked Rich, who's in the room with me, if he had a question. And he doesn't right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if anyone has a question, because it's hard for Ayya to see everybody's picture because we have more than sort of one page of pictures, if you can just unmute and speak out. While we're waiting for a question, I find this sutta interesting because instead of starting off by defining right view as understanding the Four Noble Truths, it talks about karma, like consequences for good and bad actions. So I think that's very interesting. So since you're talking about things evolving, do you see that as a more basic understanding to help us with our sila? And then coming to the
Yeah, I think
later.
yeah, I think it is fundamental to understand it's a cause and effect. This is what karma really is. And we can observe for ourselves in the present life the harm or the good our actions through body, speech, and mind result in. Or we can just have faith that in a future life that we're making merit. But I think that it's a definite foundation to the path. And if we don't have that, then it's hard to proceed. If we don't understand that there is effects to, there are consequences to our actions, then we can't progress on the path.
Mhm.
And then also we can get an understanding of dukkha, of suffering from karma, and especially with the mental karma. We think about maybe actions and of body as resulting in karma, but our speech and our internal speech has an effect. And if we have thoughts of ill will, we have thoughts of cruelty, we're overcome by sensual desire, then we'll act in ways and speak in ways that are harmful, that are not to our benefit, and to harm for others, and lack of benefit for other people. So we can see the direct consequences. So that's really important. The karma of the mind.
Mhm.
There's direct consequences. Or if I have thoughts of ill will or anger, I'm not a happy person, even if I don't act on it. Uh, if I'm overwhelmed by sensual desire, if you understand, if you observe yourself, you can see how uncomfortable actually desire is. Desire in itself is dukkha.
Mhm.
So this is how it can help um, us moving along the path by understanding the experience of dukkha in the unwholesome.
Mhm.
And also as a result of karma, of actions, physical actions, um, how craving is causing problems for us, like bringing up anger, bringing up greed, bringing up maybe um, confusion. Yeah, all the unwholesome mental states can arise from desire. So we can see directly how the unwholesome or kama. I'm getting them kind of blended together. They actually um, unwholesome kamas, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
uh, is a cause for suffering.
Mhm.
So, but if we aren't keeping our sila, if we aren't uh, protecting our actions by guarding it through our mind and through our sila, uh, then we're not going to make any progress on the path. And yeah, the Four Noble Truths, I think we can understand dukkha, we can understand the cause of dukkha, but this is cessation of dukkha um, is something that we have to kind of go on faith for a while to understand it. And when we see how when the mind becomes more quiet, when the mind becomes more peaceful, when the mind becomes more still, we can start getting a little bit of a taste of this cessation. And this is really the fulfillment of the path, is to be able to really see, understand the cessation and the nibbana. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you. Any questions for Ayya?
I have a question. Hi. So you're saying, like, I've experienced this directly with thoughts of ill will and hatred, come into the mind, and then it becomes an unwholesome state. Absolutely. So I just want to paraphrase with what you're saying, is that if we continue down the path with, right view and right intention, will the mental karma will naturally shift? Because I'm not choosing these thoughts of ill will, but I would wish for better ones to come in. But if I continue down with the precepts and the path, will this mental karma shift naturally? Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, it'll develop over time, as especially we're developing this power of the observation and seeing, oh, how, like, to see how uncomfortable anger is, or ill will is, or, if you start experiencing even in your body, what is happening in my body when I have these angry thoughts, or when I'm experiencing really strong desire or greed, it's really uncomfortable. It's not a cause for happiness. And also understanding the harm that can arise, then they'll naturally start to subside. And the more, it's like in the sutta, it talks about making an effort to abandon, but it's actually I think the mindfulness, being really aware of the arising or the absence of unwholesome states. How is it when I'm feeling content? How is it when I have a heart of loving kindness? This is entering into the wholesome, to really embracing those experiences and recognizing, oh, I'm feeling really content right now. I'm feeling at ease. I'm feeling loving kindness. And then what joy I'm bringing to myself and to the world. And so not only do we observe our unwholesome states, but we should be also observing the experience of the wholesome states. And this will help us develop these wholesome states, and help us, it prevents, actually, if we have thoughts of loving kindness, it prevents the arising of ill will. If we have thoughts of contentment, it prevents the arising of greed. If we are developing understanding, it's overcoming ignorance. We're developing wisdom. The more we observe what's going on with ourselves and the cause and effect of our mental and verbal and physical actions, the more we're developing wisdom. So they all work together. They're all mutually reinforcing, and yeah, it takes place over time, and we should also observe when, like I was saying, really observe when when our mind is calm, when we're free from the unwholesome. Because if we're only paying attention to the when the unwholesome states come up, we might think that's all there is. But actually, there's a lot of time when the wholesome states are present. So then we can nurture them.
So is putting in these foundational pieces, the building blocks, is that pedaling the bicycle uphill, and then after that it's coasting downhill and things unfold on their own?
Oh, that sounds like a metaphor that Bhante Sujata had talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it is.
Is it quite
But
fit?
yeah, we have to keep pedaling. Pardon me?
So it doesn't quite fit here.
Yeah, we do have to. Yeah, we do have to keep pedaling. And I think we look at the landmarks as we're going along,
Mm-hmm.
and that we get encouragement that we're getting closer. And we hear that from the teachings, the Buddha will say, well, you'll see this. Your mind, that the mind is going to become more peaceful. You'll feel more joy. You'll feel contentment in the body. The body will become more still. The body, you'll feel joy in the body. So you'll start noticing these signposts. That's like when you're pedaling along, and you say, okay, there's that. Well, they told me I would see this, and then it's going to start getting steeper, but I got to keep pedaling. And then we get up to the crest of the hill, and then we see the ocean, and we go, I know I'm on the right path. I'm getting, So then, once we get over that hill, it's going to be a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're referring to the same metaphor that Bhante Sujata was.
Well, I had heard that metaphor, and I was wondering if it applied in this situation or not. I couldn't remember what the metaphor was.
He was talking about nibbana.
Oh.
He was saying that we're going on faith for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like pedaling uphill, and they said you got to go up this hill, and maybe you take a left turn here, and then you keep going up, and then you'll see this, and then you get to a point where you're pedaling uphill, and you start smelling the ocean. And if you don't keep going, you could just easily roll back and never see it. But once you get up to that crest, that's the equivalent of entering the stream, when you actually can see the ocean.
Oh, okay.
And then you have to keep going, but it's even if you have to go uphill again, you're on the right track. You don't doubt. But I think whether it just becomes easy or not is it depends on your life circumstance and a lot of factors. But I think if once you really get a taste of the benefit, really understand the benefit that this practice is giving us, even if you don't, like see nibbana, at least you're seeing, I'm a happier person when I keep the precepts. I'm a happier person when I abandon the unwholesome mental states. For me, it's been like as a layperson, I noticed that I had a lot of anger and resentment, and I didn't like that coming up in my mind, but it'd be obsessive almost, and I see in my mind I was criticizing people. There's like a couple of people were like my pet peeves. And I'd be washing the dishes and I'd be thinking about, that person at work, rah, 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 rah. And I'd go, oh my goodness, I'm a Buddhist. I'm not supposed to be having ill will towards somebody. And so I just brought my awareness to the body and saw what was going on with the body, the tension in the body, the discomfort in the body. Um, and I just, kept every time I was aware of the anger arising, I go, oh my goodness, anger is the nutriment of ill will. So so I kept letting it go and letting it go, and also cultivating loving kindness to counteract it. And now I'm noticing that I have a lot less. It's not like I'm completely devoid of irritation or anger, but I notice it. And there was another monastic. We were talking about what our predominant kilesa was, and I said, "Well, I'm an anger type," and he was saying, "You?" And he said, "No, I'm an anger type." And I go, "No, I don't think so." But what it is that you become really sensitive. You start becoming more sensitive. And then what seems like a big thing, like when I start feeling some irritation, it's not as big as it was when before I started working on it. It's much less. And I've even had like experiences where I said, I was a little grouchy with you the other day. I'm sorry. And the person said, "What? You were grouchy?" It's like, I noticed it. They didn't notice it. So I think, so over time there is this, it is a gradual path. And over time we do see, when we compare, I don't know how long people here have been doing the practice, but if you compare like how you were 5 years ago, hopefully you see a difference. Hopefully you see a change is happening. And I think it is important is if you think, there's like greed, hate, and delusion. Delusion is the hardest one to perceive in oneself. But if you see, I have a tendency more towards anger than greed, or I have a tendency more towards greed. And so then you start working with the opposite wholesome quality. Try to really develop that, and that'll help mitigate that. That'll help. Like I was saying, I just started working with loving kindness a lot because I could see I was just kind of a little bit horrified with the amount of anger I was seeing in myself. And so it does bear fruit over time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And let's see, the opposite of greed, that's actually upekkha, to develop upekkha. But also, I think mudita helps with that, because mudita is usually opposite of jealousy. But I think if you're rejoicing, rather than wanting something that somebody else has, to rejoice in other people's happiness and success. But the development of upekkha is said to counteract greed.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have to develop wisdom to overcome ignorance. And that's this observation, really seeing ourselves, looking at ourselves clearly. And also putting a spotlight on the 3 characteristics as it overcomes ignorance.
Hmm. Any final questions for Ayya? We're getting near the end of our time.
Leslie, is it? Yes.
Can you speak about disgust as a skillful emotion?
Oh, you mean the asubha? That's what you're talking about?
I don't know what it is in Pali, but I was listening to a talk on Dharma Seed about it because it's been coming up in my practice.
Okay.
And they said it's a skillful emotion because it was an Ayya, but I don't remember which one, because it turns you away from harmful behavior. So if you have disgust for harmful behavior,
Oh, for the behaviors. Okay. There's like,
yeah.
there's a Suba practice, which is sometimes called revulsion or disgust or something like that.
Mhm.
But I may be different than what you're referring to. Yeah, I think when I see in myself anger or greed or something like that, then there is there's a there's also hiriotapa, which is like uh moral shame and
Dread,
there's a what is it now? I can't remember right now.
dread, shame and
Dread, yeah. So this is how it's usually translated, dread and shame, which sounds really strong. And so disgust also sounds really strong too. But I think you mentioned turning away. I think that's it's supposed to be a protection. So if I like I was saying, when I see the harm, when I see that it's harming myself, then naturally I'm going to want to abandon it, let it go. And we don't want to develop ill will towards ourselves or kind of some negativity towards ourselves because we're having anger or we're having greed. But I think we need to be honest with ourselves and look at how it's not helping us, how it's unbeneficial, how it's harmful. So that may be, I guess I could be disgusted. That could be one way I could phrase it when I see it's unbeneficial or harmful. But you don't want to add a unwholesome state to an unwholesome state by having it's if it's in the realm of irritation or anger or ill will. Yeah, it's you. We have to be kind of careful not to be not to be causing a negative or a harmful mental state. But if it's resulting, if we're looking clearly, oh yeah, it's kind of like I have this metaphor. I like, I'm I'm walking along and there's dog poo in the path, right? If it's in my yard, let's say if it's in my walking path in my yard, what do? I could walk around it, or I could get angry because the dog came in my yard, or I could just clean up the poo. So we don't want to step in the poo. We don't need to get angry because this is just what happens. It just the nature of the dog. But we do want to take care of it. We don't want to just leave it there. So yeah, so we just take care of it. We just get rid of it, abandon it, compost it. So I hope that's helpful. So Mary, you look poised.
Yeah, I only see a few people's little thumbnails. Was there anything else for any other questions before we end for this evening?